Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have trusted Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. Just tell Progressive what you want to pay, and they'll show you coverage options that fit your budget. Visit Progressive.com to find a car insurance rate that works for you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
The Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle. The best in entertainment in one bundle. This month, stream Disney and Pixar's blockbuster family favorite, Hoppers, on Disney Plus. FX's critically acclaimed The Bear, Season 5 on Hulu.
Everything's either going to be okay or not.
And Season 3 of the HBO original series, House of the Dragon, on HBO Max.
You have power within your grasp.
Get the Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle today. All of these and more streaming soon. Plan starting at $19.99 a month. Terms apply. Visit Disney Plus Hulu Max Bundle.com for details.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. It's Friday, June 12th here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I'm joined, as always, by Matthew. The end is near, Betz.
The end is near. The end is here, Kyle. I'm telling you what, brother, on Monday, I am not taking a single step. I'm not going to move from the couch all day, which I'm sure my wife will really appreciate. But man, Ironman Sunday is here. We'll see if I survive, and we'll see if the show goes on, which you'll know next week, whether or not I survived this race. If the show comes out in your podcast feed on Friday, all right, good news. We did it. If there is no show in your app next Friday, you know where to find me, which is probably the bottom of the reservoir in central Pennsylvania.
That's what I was going to say. It's the swim, bike, run part, but the swim part. It's the swim part was where, if you're going to go out, that's where you're going.
Dude, so it's funny. My wife and I and a couple of friends were talking about this. They're like, "Are you nervous for the swim?" I was like, "I mean, not really, because it's the start, right? So you're fresh. You have consumed so much food the day or the morning of and the night before. Like
Michael
you're carved
Scott,
up.
Yeah, Michael Scott carbo loading.
I'm going to be eating fettuccine Alfredo with my swim cap on at the start line." Okay. But I was like, yeah, I'm not that nervous about it. But my friend goes, "Oh, if it's less than 76 degrees, the water temperature, you can wear a wetsuit." I was like, wait, what? So the last 2 weeks, I've been researching wetsuits. I finally got one off Facebook Marketplace from a lovely woman who wore it twice for also her Ironman things. And I don't know why, don't ask, she was in a men's large, but I bought it for a very good deal and it fit like a glove. So now that I have that, I'm like, dude, if I'm dying out there, 1,000 yards in, whatever, just take a little break. I'll be floating. I'm basically out there with an inner tube on and swimmies, just like my kids. So I'm ready to go. I am not nervous whatsoever, but it should be good, man. I'm excited about the experience. Whole family's going to be there. I think the girls are going to make some signs. Hopefully cheer that on. So it should be a good day.
That is fun. It's fun, especially the culmination. I think I like this process in our jobs where every day you're building a little bit to the culmination of when the ultimate draft kit comes out. You and I just kind of every day, just kind of same thing with training for anything. It's I'm going to just do the same thing over and over and over again, and it's going to pay off. So I like that. And I feel like that goes well with what we're talking about today on today's show. We're mostly looking at best ball strategy, getting some of your questions related to things that have changed in 2026, things that have changed with the NFL, the ADP landscape, and then how does that build towards building your rosters and hopefully taking down a tournament in the best ball street. So we'll talk about that. If you want all of our projections, best ball rankings, everything we've got, I just did a little update right before.
I saw that. You want to tell people what you were updating?
I do need to confess this. I have kind of been anti Cam Scatterboo. When the ADP first came out, I was like, you know what? I know me. I'm if everybody's in, I'm out. And that's kind of how I've been on the Giants, right? Neighbors I've had buried for a long time.
Right.
Dart is in a range where it's if he's there, but I'm not going for it. Malachi Fields doesn't even exist to me. And then Scatterboo, I was like, man, there's other running backs in that range, and I've kind of slowly moved him up to a place where I'm still a little behind ADP, but I'm kind of realizing his potential and just his overall skill set. It's okay, I think he's fine where he's going about RB 15-ish.
Yeah, I was with you. I was behind initially just because it was like, let's just see how his recovery goes before we make any decisions of like in or out. Because like in the first 5 rounds, like you want to be confident in these picks. And now that we've seen, him at OTAs and in a limited capacity, like he's only going to get stronger as the summer goes on, obviously. And especially at that ADP, like you're not drafting him to be a top 5 guy, obviously. And so there is some outs where it's like, hey, if you do go RB to start and he's your 3rd guy, which that's kind of how people are drafting right now, the late season upside is certainly there, even if he's a little bit slower off of the injury. So yeah, I'm with you. He's just, his profile is fantasy friendly, right? Catches the football. He's going to get the goal line roll, all those things. So yeah, we'll see. I made a couple updates as well. Bumped down Alec Pierce a little bit further as we get more and more injury updates on him. And then I had Emmanuel Wilson as a pretty decent, and relatively to this year's landscape, this is a huge caveat. The late round options at running back are not good, period, but a decent-ish click because of the Zach Charbonnet injury and everything. And then we got some news, Kyle. The Helani Hive is out.
Oh, baby.
And about. And apparently he is getting first reps with Jadarian Price. So I bumped Emmanuel Wilson down a little bit, just given that. But yeah, we'll see. Obviously, we're about to enter the deadest of dead periods of the NFL, where at least we get something in OTAs. You get a little injury news, you get some updates on potential usage, and then you get some mini camp stuff. And brother, mid-June to late July, nothing. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's a certain point, especially with running backs, where you're just taking stabs at guys that you think might be the RB2, and then a month later we're like, oh man, I was drafting too much of Brashard Smith, the Chiefs running back. And
last year.
That was last year. I was not personally. I would never. The 7th round running back in my queue. No, that's not happening. But you can see some of the changes we made. UltimateDraftKit.com. You can also use the app, download our rankings, trash them if you want. Do whatever you want to do. I did have a quick question for us that we've talked a little bit about this. There's an article on the website for those that have the UDK Plus about season-long projections and season-long player props. You can find all the projections that Andy, Mike, and Jason have. And one of the things that we do on the back end is Betz and I look at the sportsbooks line for season-long props, and then we just ask a simple question. How can we take an under? That's it. That's the simple question. I did tease an over to you where I said if I really had to, there's a sportsbook out there where David Montgomery's line's like 700 rushing yards. And I'm like, I'm somewhat tempted, but we're only recommending unders. Undersonly.com, right?
Correct. In this market, because there is so much volatility with, injuries, obviously, usage changes, coaching changes, quarterback changes, offensive line injuries, if you're taking an over on a running back, just et cetera, stuff that we talked about on the show for, I feel like 5 years straight. So yes, undersonly.com is the location of where you would like to go for these wagers. But the important thing about the exercise that you showed me, and this is a good reminder for everybody else that's trying to source their own wagers, or whether you're tailing us or your own from the projections in the draft kit, be sure you are line shopping. Because, like on a normal like week 7 Sunday, when you're looking at, I don't know, Mike Evans receiving lines, it's super rare to find like a 52.5 out there and then like a random like 63.5. Like that just doesn't happen, comparing books. But in this market, like you mentioned, like Dave Montgomery's at 700.5 on one book and like 825.5 on another book. It's like, well, if you like the over, do not play the 825.5, obviously. So this is one of those that line discrepancies really do happen. And the same in the awards market. We talked about that a lot. You really, really have to grind some small edges in these markets that still exist. And this is one of those where you do have an edge because there are multiple books offering these and generally not a huge consensus on the line.
Yeah, I mean, and once again, every single line out there is going to give you a median outcome where if you just were to ask the question, the casual fan, can this player hit this? Yes, of course. In fact, a lot of the lines are set to bait people to look at last year's stat lines and go, oh man, like he already went over this. Like he went over this last season, so therefore he will clearly do it again. So Betz and I look at unders, and then we really ask ourselves a couple questions like, what are the outs here? What are the different routes? And if we can find multiple ones, then we give them out. So the one that I want to throw out there is Dak Prescott, someone that we've actually been lower on this year. Like usually we're always big fans of Cowboy stacks. We bring up Dak as kind of a value all the time in redraft circles, but his passing touchdowns line is at 27.5. So I like the under for Dak Prescott here. One, he's never had back-to-back 30 passing touchdown seasons in his career, so that's one thing. But he's coming off a season where he led the NFL completions. He set career highs in passing yards and pass attempts, and he had 13 passing touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. That was second only to Matthew Stafford. So on just a volume standpoint, I think we can expect some regression. We also can expect the defense to be somewhat more competent. You might look at the Cowboys and be like, oh, that team's just going to always be bad. That is not how it works in the NFL. And I'm not saying that they have to be like a top half unit, but like a casual, competency of moving from like 31st or 32nd to like 24th changes how the game scripts go for Dallas. So I will just take the under on this team might not have to throw as much. I also love betting against players throwing, 28 plus touchdowns back-to-back season in general. And then I just think that volume-wise and injury-wise, there's a number of outs there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. I'm with you on the Dak take for best ball, and we talked about that a little bit with just the ADPs for the Cowboys, where it's like comparing what this stack had to do last year, where you could get Javonte super late, you could get Pickens about 2 to 2.5 rounds later than where he goes, and you get Dak later than where he goes this year. It's just like the expectation at ADP right now is like they will repeat last year and potentially be even better. And just we know in the NFL, it's very hard to do that year over year, and this prop aligns with that. So I'm with you. I don't know if we'll make this official or not, Kyle, but if you want to talk me into it, but perhaps we could hop in Discord, find out.
Make it official.
Okay. I mean, Kyle doesn't like the Cowboys. As an Eagles fan, I'm down for that. So obviously zero bias here.
I love CD.
Yeah, I know. Me too. What about Bucky under 825.5 rushing yardage? Now, corporate is saying slam the over. If you look at projections in the Ultimate Draft Kit, roughly about 900 yards is kind of what we're projecting. And obviously this could change based off of what reports we get in camp or what have you. But it's like, man, I just think about the year he had. And obviously we don't want to overreact to one season that was injury plagued, because I do still think he's a talented player. And I do think the offensive line will be more healthy this year. And I do think that Bucky at his ADP, like going into the season this year, I was like, man, I'm probably going to be pretty underweight Bucky in best ball just because he's going in roughly, mid to late round 4. It's like, dude, he's falling like the mid 6 now quite often. And it's like, maybe I'll be overweight Bucky. It's just like the market has changed. Remember last year, you and I were kind of out on Josh Jacobs, and then he started falling to a spot where I was like, I guess I'm ahead of market on Jacobs now. So you just react to what the market is giving you. So I've actually been taking a lot of Bucky for the upside case that exists. So when I say this, do not take this as if he's not a good pick or won't be a good pick in best ball. Just from a median projection, it's like this guy's coming off an injury-plagued season, smaller back. They used Sean Tucker at the goal line a lot. Obviously, they made an investment to get Kenneth Gainwell on the roster. It's like, man, this is probably going to be some sort of committee. It's just hard to rush for 900, 1,000 yards in the NFL. Like you think, oh, it's easy, this player can do it. It just doesn't happen as often as you might realize. So given that there's injury outs and a committee approach here, I lean under. Again, the projections don't currently show that, but it is June, and obviously things could change.
Yeah, I look at that backfield, and everyone kind of has this interesting role. Sean Tucker, who was like one of our favorite players to take round 18 last year, he's like the short yardage guy, but when Bucky and Rachaad White were active last year, he averaged 8% of the snaps. So like, right. If two players are here, and Todd Bowles did call Kenneth Gainwell the 1B to Bucky's 1A, right after they signed him. So they're kind of looking at this as let's say Bucky gets, 50% or 40%. It's like, that's not enough. I don't mind where he's going in best ball, but like, he's such a weird player. Like Bucky, he's not the goal line guy. They don't really involve him inside the red zone. Like when he came back from injury last year, he did not have a single catch inside the red zone, when that's like the Kenneth Gainwell special sauce, the thing that he's great at. So I just worry about like, what is his role as like a between the 20s guy that like, I think these other running backs can be effective too. Like Tucker's had some monster games in his career. Gainwell, I think, is probably the most has the most valuable role for fantasy. So there is a scenario where Bucky like slides guaranteed money. He has way less than what Gainwell has, if we just want to throw that out there. But we're going to take an under on a player that is still coming back. It is a new system. We need to throw that in there again. Like this is not the same offense. Doesn't have Mike Evans. Things change a lot. And last year he was 51st among 55 running backs in rush success rate. I know he was hurt, but man, it was like struggle bus the entire year.
Yeah. It was. At the same time, and I don't want to make this a Bucky show because obviously we're talking through range of outcomes, but like the first month of the season, he was incredible and unsustainable, of course. But like just going back there, it's like, man, I forget, right? Because all you remember is like the injury, and then is he going to come back? Is he not going to come back?
Right.
He'll be back in 4 weeks, and all of a sudden it's 2 months later, and he's still not back, and everybody's wondering what's going on. And now after the fact, we have some news on what was seriously going on. From an injury perspective and potentially mental health as well. But like, he was so good at the start of the season. So I still think it's possible for him to regain that form and what we saw in his rookie year, which means I'm accepting that the right tail outcome here for Bucky in best ball, like I'm kind of in on when he gets to the 6th round, but just like rushing yardage, I lean under here.
All right. So he's RB23, 53rd overall in best ball. Yeah, I don't mind that price. There are some players around him. Like I think we both like Baishal Tootin. Jadarian Price is a little bit lower, and then you start dipping into this like Chuba Hubbard, Ramondre, Jalen Warren, Tony Pollard group that if you're going to your RB, it's fine. But Tony Pollard, once again, a guy that I'm not super close with. So it'll be interesting. Bucky's such a good player. Even I'm thinking back to our Dynasty shows when he was at Oregon coming out. It's like between the tackles, this guy should not look like this because he's small. And he's just explosive. I think we're rooting for him, and I think we will be playing a lot of Bucky this year. But season long, this is just a market that we will take an under. Let's hit a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
If you walk into a room and can't remember why, it could be nothing or something more. If you confuse a familiar recipe, it could be a slip-up. Or it could be associated with amyloid plaque buildup in the brain. Amyloid is a protein that your body produces naturally, but a buildup in the brain could lead to memory and thinking issues. To see what may be behind your memory and thinking issues, talk to your doctor about getting a full assessment. It's never too early to start the conversation. Visit amyloid.com to learn more.
For a small business owner, every day is full of surprises. Some great, some not so great. Like when a client cancels their order at the last minute. But here's a surprise you will like. Progressive provides small business owners with 30 customizable coverage options to help keep their business going strong. So go ahead, surprise yourself. Get a quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates and third-party insurers. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
All right, we took a bunch of questions from our Discord, which I just want to give a shout out to our Best Ball Discord crew because they really are some sharp people. And then on top of that, they like to bully us. They like to remind us that we're scared. I saw one question from Saints to Death, which is one of our most active people on Discord. He's like, are you guys too scared to join our Best Ball Dynasty League? And I said, yeah, we're scared.
Yes, because how could we face it if Kyle and I lose to you guys? I mean, I can't show up for work the next day if that's the case. So
then it's the like, hey, these guys are giving us advice on a podcast, and we're smarter than them, and so why can't we host? Like they would just eventually talk to corporate for us, and then they would even bring up because we know Andy, Mike, and Jason obviously listen to every single one of these podcasts. You know, then it would actually get out to them that we're trashing them as much as we do.
Yeah, so that's why we're not in the league.
Yeah, there you go.
Mailbag.
All right, I hit the mailbag drop, and we're going to get through some questions here. This first one I think is going to be just dudes talking ball, you know, just guys sitting around talking football, and then we'll trickle down to how this works to best ball and just the structure of the NFL. But it's from Moose Ram Prof, Eagles fan, it looks like. So one of your buddies,
Great person.
Philly faithful, you know, just upstanding individuals.
You see what the Knicks fans are doing these days?
I know. I actually had a full conversation yesterday with somebody who's from New York, and they're like, "Oh man, I'm glad I don't live there anymore. This is what would happen." And then I tried to explain Philly fans. He's like, "I think this is going to be worse."
Count me in as somebody who would 100 out of 100 times prefer to watch any major sporting event on the couch in my slippers with a nice cup of tea, and if I'm feeling frisky, maybe a little whiskey or something, you know, like that to me is way more relaxing. I can drink and eat whatever I want, whenever I want, can pee whenever I want.
If you fell asleep, it's okay. You're not judged.
Dude, some of these videos are crazy. All right, let's move on.
All right, from Moose Ram Prof. So I've been hearing about the disappearance of the wide receiver 2 in addition to the emergence of 12 and 13 personnel, so multiple tight ends. With all these heavy RB starts, is it actually viable to fill your wide receiver spots with a bunch of people whose role is disappearing? So this is like a twofold question. Like, we've heard over the last year that there are teams that are adopting more 12 personnel sets and 13 personnel. The Rams, I think, were the best example of this last year. Was like, oh my gosh, they have 3 tight ends. Oh my gosh, they just drafted another one, Max Clare, in the second round. And then you look at some of the other teams that were really successful last year. Like Sam Darnold, he won a Super Bowl on a Seahawks team that ranked number 1 in expected points per pass attempt with 2 tight ends on the field. Ben Johnson took the Bears offense that was 28th in points per game to 9th by selecting a tight end, 10th overall, and then running a ton of 2 tight end sets. So I think the first thought comes up is, if the NFL is going to love this tight end, they have a tight end obsession. They love it. Is this going to hurt my fantasy wide receivers? So let's dissect that first. Do you think that that's maybe a bit of a simplistic statement there? Like, more tight ends means this will hurt the wide receivers?
I think this is a yes and no answer. What I mean by that is that when fewer wide receivers are on the field and more tight ends are on the field, the receivers that are really good target earners become even better, right? Like, you think about, I don't know, like this year, one of the teams that I think is going to run a lot more 12 than maybe we've seen is the Chargers. And it's like, man, we already know Ladd is a great target earner. Quentin Johnson is, I mean, he's been really good the last couple of years, especially in best ball. It's like those guys and their target earning potential is even better if there's fewer wide receivers on the field. And then I think about the other part of the question. It's like, well, for the game we're playing for best ball, there used to be times where it's like, man, this team's going to live in 11 personnel. I'm already stacking up this team. I got their quarterback and their wide receiver 1. I can tack on the wide receiver 3 in round 17. And I know that he's going to be on the field enough, run enough routes. Perhaps it's not efficient, but maybe just a couple spike weeks hit my lineup. I think you're going to have fewer of those opportunities where just you're not getting as many routes in the later rounds of drafts because fewer wide receivers are running less routes. So it's kind of a twofold question. And to me, that makes some of these elite wide receivers even more valuable than perhaps they used to be, which is really intriguing because right now the meta is you've got to take running backs early, especially in best ball, right? It's like we're seeing them pushed up after a couple years of running backs being very, very good, very, very valuable, staying healthy, all those things. But now I'm like, man, these wide receivers here are so valuable because if this trend continues, the target earning potential is even better than it has been in the past couple of seasons. So kind of a twofold answer is how I put it.
Right. And just to give you some numbers, like when we say the NFL is using more 12 personnel, the average NFL team use it on just 22% of their snaps. So like it's a chunk, it's almost a quarter, but it's not like an overwhelming amount. This is how it's working. There were some extreme cases where like the Seahawks and other teams are using it at a much higher rate, but like 6 of the 7 lowest teams in 12 personnel last year made the playoffs. Like the Chargers were the lowest, and you brought them up because they're going to look so different this year with the way that they've acquired a couple of different players, Charlie Kohler, David Njoku, and even a fullback. I think it's just interesting because it actually, you brought it up, it helps the wide receivers because if a tight end is on the field, okay, then most of the time if they're running a route, they're not a serious target earner compared to the other guy. If it's some blocking tight end, like I rewatched all of the Bears snaps inside the red zone. It's like, yes, Colston Loveland is a tight end that can earn targets, but then Durham Smythe, who is out there a ton in the red zone, is not a guy that's going to get a ton of targets inside the red zone. It opens up opportunities. The other scenario is that if a tight end is blocking, then they're not running a route, and therefore they're not a threat to steal a target. So it actually helps wide receivers. If you look at their targets per out run, when there's 2 wide receivers on the field last year, they were targeted on 21% of their routes. That's wide receivers. When there were 3 or more, it was under 19%. So there is a big difference in there. And the player that I want to bring up is Mike Evans, because he is going from a team that was exclusively 3 wide in Tampa Bay to a 49ers team that was tied for 4th in terms of sets with 2 or fewer wide receivers. I think that's going to be a massive boost for him. Over the last 4 years, he's been targeted on 34% of his routes when 2 or fewer wide receivers. Like, that's what he's good at. So it's finding cases like that. It's bringing up teams like the Chargers that you think are going to run more 12. and then identifying the wide receiver. So I actually think it gives a boost, like it did JSN last year. It gives a boost to certain players. You just kind of have to identify them.
Yeah, that's a really good point on Mike Evans. I'm glad you brought that up. The other thing, too, that I was going to say about this is kind of like we mentioned on our stacking episode with just best ball in general. It's like everybody's stacking. That doesn't mean that you're necessarily guaranteed to win or advance or whatever. And even though the trend right now is more 12, more heavy personnel, just because teams are maybe going to try it doesn't mean that A, they'll be good at it, or B, will stick with it as the year goes on if the results aren't successful. So one team that I wanted to talk through with you on this concept, because it's fascinating, it's really fun to think through, is the Jaguars, right? And they took the Texas A&M kid. What's his name again?
Nate Borkature.
How could I forget Nate Borkature? I mean, that guy, ball player. In round 2? And it's like, okay, maybe those moves suggest we will see a lot more heavy personnel sets, but then you look at their depth chart and like the strength of the team is the wide receivers. And so like,
correct.
Is it a disservice to be like, hey, we're going to do this just because the NFL is doing this and we think it might be a good trend? But it's like, man, well, to put him out there, like you have to take off the field Parker Washington or Brian Thomas Jr. or whoever, Jacoby Myers, whatever the wide receiver is that day. It's like, I don't know, Liam Cohen seems super sharp, and that just seems like not a great idea to me, just as a guy in his mom's basement. But like, I think there's a chance you could see some teams try some stuff, ebb and flow. Okay, it didn't go great, let's switch it up. So I wouldn't get so tied to like trying to peg down like these are definitely the 12 personnel teams and here's how it's going to go. I think we have a good idea on some of those teams, but it could change throughout the year. It could change based off matchup and all those sort of things. So we'll see. NFL is a copycat league. I would not be surprised if in 2 years we're talking about this and we're like, remember that trend, from like 2023 to 2025, 26, where it was like heavy personnel? That's gone now,
Yep.
Like the NFL just ebbs and flows.
Next question is from Whaley. It's an AMA question. It says, for both of y'all, how much fun do you guys have when a Braves and Phillies series rolls around, and what's a fun sports memory you guys have that isn't football related? So Braves and Phillies is really fun. We have some good banter back and forth. It's really fun to be a Braves fan right now. My kids love it. We pretty much watch every single game together. They stayed up last night. We lost 2-1. But I looked at the schedule too. The Braves and Phillies played each other like early on in the season. We don't play again until September.
Oh, wow. I feel like that's not the norm.
Not normal.
Yeah. How's Ronald Acuna Jr. doing over there, buddy?
Not playing. Doing as good as me.
Yeah, that stinks. No, those series are fun. We got to go to a game together last year. That was a great time. Unfortunately, the Phils got smoked in that one, so Kyle got to shove it in my face and brag a little bit. He was standing up for a home run for the opposing team. He may have had some choice words said to him by other Philly fans. It was a great time. But one of my favorite memories that isn't football related is, of course, Philly sports. There's 2. Senior year of high school, the Flyers coming back against the Bruins, down 3-0 in the series, but then also 3-0 in Game 7 to come back and win that 4-3 in Boston was something I'll probably never forget. And then the 08 World Series was, I can still picture that Brad Lidge pitch every single time. So those are 2 huge memories for me.
Nice. I have a fun one from my senior year as well. So I saw your answer and then I had mine. So Braves have always been my team. I've grown up here in Atlanta, but there is a team in the late 90s, early 2000s that I love. I loved those Red Sox teams because my favorite baseball player played on the Red Sox, and the core of their team were from here in Georgia. They played at Georgia Tech. Nomar Garcia-Parra and Jason Varitek, who's actually a family friend. So yeah.
Name dropping here.
So I loved that team and I hated the Yankees. So when the Red Sox came back in 2004, when they were down 3-0, I watched every single game with my group of 10 friends. We would go and watch every single game at the local sports bar. And after that Yankees loss in Game 3, we just thought this is so sad. And some of my closest friends were from Boston, Red Sox fans. So we all rooted for that team. So for them to come back, win that, and win the World Series and reverse the curse, that's maybe my favorite memory. And then right after we graduated, me and one of those friends did a baseball road trip. We went to Fenway. We went to Old Yankee Stadium. We went to Cooperstown right when we graduated. So that baseball memory, will probably stay with me forever.
Yeah, that's fun. The late 90s to mid 2000 era, that's like my core of like when I was so into baseball, I played baseball. It was like those are the years I remember so much. But yeah, those Red Sox teams are fun. The summer of, Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire,
98.
who were definitely all natural, not doing anything they shouldn't have been doing as far as performance enhancing drugs, hitting homers every night, watching like Sports Center and all that. So man, if you're kind of around our age, I'm sure you can relate. But yeah, those years were super, super fun.
So our jobs are in football, and we could talk football all day. But I got to say it, the peak, the highest of high for baseball, because there's a lot of lows and a lot of boring stuff. I'm not trying to like say that every part's great, but when you hit the highest of highs of baseball, it's awesome.
Yeah,
like that's some of my favorite stuff. Next one is from Penguin. Says, for Underdog, where do you guys stand on the 2 versus 3 quarterbacks debate with the current prices? Historical data says 3 quarterbacks has been great for advance rates. But with inflated quarterback prices, are you making a stand or are you trying to get ahead of the meta by just taking 2 quarterbacks? So, looking at the data from Underdog since 2021, the advance rates for 2 quarterbacks is 16%. The advance rate for 3 quarterbacks is 17%. 4 quarterbacks, 15%. And then last year, it was a lot better to take 3 quarterbacks. It had an 18% advance rate and a way better semifinals advance rate. And I think... I wish I could just give you a really simple answer. So like, do this or that. Like, I'm going to ebb and flow based on whatever the draft gives me. I'm not going in saying this is a 3 quarterback build.
Yeah, and it's also important that a lot of this data is often descriptive, not predictive of what's going to happen this year. And I just think about the last couple seasons of like the quarterbacks that hit that were going super late. A couple years ago when Bo Nix was a rookie, unbelievable pick at ADP, right? Round 18 or round 20 on DraftKings, like, that guy's hitting your lineup a lot, and that's a huge, huge piece. And then I think about last year, it's like, well, Daniel Jones was left for dead, and yes, he didn't finish the season because of the injury, but like when he was healthy, he was awesome as a quarterback. And it's like, if you have those hits, obviously in hindsight, you can describe them and talk about them. It's hard to predict them, but if you have those hits in the later rounds, then generally speaking, 3 quarterback builds are going to look pretty good, especially if the elite guys don't separate. And there was a couple seasons ago where the elite guys were separating. And it's like, well, if you didn't have Josh Allen or Lamar or one of those elite options, Jane Daniels as a rookie, it's like you probably fell behind a little bit. So it's just important to remember this is all descriptive, not predictive. And so when I think about this year, it's like, well, what are we getting in the later rounds? Sam Darnold, CJ Stroud, Daniel Jones off the injury with Alec Pierce injured, Bryce Young, Fernando Mendoza, Aaron Rodgers. Like, I'm sure that one of those guys will hit and be a really good advance rate player. But it's really hard to sell me on the idea of passing on quarterback in the middle rounds, which I love right now. Jane Daniels, Jalen Hurts, the guys we talked about a lot that I think are mispriced. And then in like the kind of round 9 to 10 bucket, there's plenty of good options there. And it's like, if you're just passing on a bunch of those guys to take 2 or 3 of these options that I just mentioned, that to me feels like a hard sell right now. Could it happen? Sure. But to me, I'll let the board kind of give me, whatever the room is doing and adjust from there. I'm not going into draft and saying this is definitely a 2 quarterback team or a 3 quarterback team. But right now, I don't feel great about the late round options.
Yep. You just listed all the guys that once you go through it, you're like, I could see it as my QB3. I get it. But like, if you wanted to use round 13 as a cutoff, so pick 145 is what starts that. Like, if you are taking... historically, your 3rd quarterback after that, it's been generally good, but you have to find the right guy. I was thinking of Baker Mayfield. Remember that first year with the Bucks?
Yep.
Like, he absolutely smashed. Geno a couple of years ago was like an absolute smash. Like, those are the kind of picks that you have to mine out and find, and they're not there every single year. So I mentioned Rodgers a couple of weeks ago as like a gross stack. I've kind of warmed up like, hey, as my QB3 in the 170s or in the 180s, like I will take that all day. I do not really advise people triple tapping before round 13, where you're taking your 3rd quarterback from that group where you're like, okay, so I got Jalen Hurts, and then I found somebody else in this kind of middle-ish tier, and then I'm taking another one before QB 20 goes off the board. It's like, I think you're not using your resources the way that you need to, because the score is pretty much going to be replaceable with one of these guys. We like Cam Ward a lot. I think that's a really, really fine one as well. If you want to go late, I don't mind Darnold, but I think at the end of the day, like, the prices are tough if we're comparing Underdog 2022 or 2023, but like, I'm not playing against Underdog 2022, right? Like, the advance rates that I find from there are descriptive, like you mentioned, but they are not actually impacting how I should be drafting. in 2026. So at the end of the day, just don't go into your draft saying this is a 2 or a 3 build.
For sure. And I also think it's super, super important, man. Like, one of the things that nobody really talks about in best ball is contest selection. And it's like, well, if you're only drafting in Best Ball Mania or the DraftKings Millie, then like you have an idea of what your contest is and you need to understand what you have to do to advance. It's a pretty standard advanced structure, but there are tournaments out there where like there's some fun ones that have been dropping over the last, couple of weeks on Underdog that are like 6 of 12, 4 of 12 in the first round. And it's like, well, you don't need as much from an advance rate standpoint to get that team through. So maybe a 2-quarterback team is preferred because it's more likely you'll advance than not relative to the 2 out of 12 structure that's normal. So just something to consider. Make sure you're looking at your contests as well.
Next question is from Saints to Death. He asks, rank the risk factor of buying the dip on Josh Jacobs, Rashee Rice, Malik Neighbors, and Bucky Irving from least risky to most risky. So when he's referring to buying the dip, he's basically saying this player's ADP has fallen recently. This is a good time to take this player. And then the question that I want to ask for any player, we just really got to ask, is this player a good pick at their ADP at this time in the summer in context to whatever tournament I'm just playing? So like you just mentioned that fact, like you could have a different answer on all 4 of those. Are they a good pick at their ADP at this time and in this tournament?
That's definitely a thing to consider. If you're in a time box tournament, like the puppies will fill before obviously August. There's a couple Superflex things that are live right now that'll close shortly. It's like, man, if you want to just get a little bit of Malik Neighbors exposure in the event he comes off the injury, and from like week 9 on, he's awesome and he's himself. For the late season upside, like I get that. If I'm in a DK Millie or Underdog's Best Ball Mania, I don't think we've seen the bottom range yet on a guy like Malik Neighbors, who inevitably will start camp on the PUP list. We already know that. But as we talked about with the AJ Brown trade last week, you always think this stuff is baked in, and it's never actually like fully baked in until the news drops, even though you know it's going to happen months in advance, which is kind of silly, but it is the way it is. So in those contests, I'm going to just keep waiting it out on Malik Neighbors. Maybe he gets to mid-round 4 or something like that, and that's fine, and I'll scoop a couple of shares there. But right now, in those other time box tournaments, you don't have enough time to get that price. So it's like, well, if I want some Neighbors exposure, I kind of just have to bite the bullet and do it. So I would think through that concept as well. But yeah, ranking the risk factors here, obviously cost plays a role here, right?
I also feel weird because I feel like this isn't like to my own horn, but I just look at all the players and was like, I wasn't really drafting these guys.
Okay, Kyle. Just victory lapping. You're victory lapping these injuries.
I'm just looking at the ranks, brother.
Come on, dude. No, I'm with you. The Josh Jacobs one to me is interesting, and like we're not legal experts, so like what the heck do we know?
He's fallen a full round. He's now going 38th overall.
But what's super interesting about Josh Jacobs to me, which is why I'd put him as like, I don't know if I'd say least risky, but the price is coming down quite a bit, is right now there's so many running backs being pushed up. You can start wide receiver. Maybe you throw in an elite tight end in there or something. And it's like, man, in round 4, I can get Josh Jacobs. And like, what if this is all pushed down the road and he's suspended next year or whatever legal issues pop up? It's like, if you're drafting as if you're right, and perhaps he's cleared of the legal stuff, which is so wild to me that like every summer, this is a thing we have to do in this game is like predict what we think might happen legally with these players. Like everybody stay inside, okay? Stop going outside and doing stupid things.
Leave your slippers on.
That's right. But it's like you can have a hero running back start with a 4th round Josh Jacobs, which was not available to you 2 weeks ago. So to me, he's like, I think relative, quote unquote, least risky, but you could frame that question in a number of different ways.
Yeah. And to take it a step further, like ask yourself, okay, with Josh Jacobs, is there a way that his ADP dips even more? And the way that happens is we get news that says there's a suspension and he drops even further. So kind of weigh that and say to yourself, like, am I okay with the risk at this point in the offseason by saying, well, if he's cleared of everything, how much more does he rise? And I don't know how much more. Like there's going to be this kind of middle ground that because there's other good running backs going before him. It's not like it's just like this dead zone. But yeah, I kind of don't mind its price at all right now.
Yeah, so I think he would come back. If he's cleared of everything, I think he comes back up into like mid 3rd round to early-ish 3rd round is where I would think he might go.
Yeah, I would probably put Bucky as the next. The wide receivers scare me. Just like
Agreed.
Personally, like how I build. So I would just put Bucky next. I know we talked about him earlier. But between Rice and Neighbors, like we have seen Neighbors fall 14 picks over the last month. Rice has gone down almost a full round. I just feel like there's other guys there that I don't like. The fear is I didn't take Rashee Rice or Malik Neighbors and they're a top 5 player, which we both think they can be the best version of themselves. I think there's other guys there that can also be top 5 guys that are going right around him. So like Devonta Smith, who we've had a lot, is going right before them. 12 is Smith, 13 is Rice, 14 is Neighbors. Your boy Zay Flowers is at 15. T. Higgins, Ladd McConkey, Tedero McMillan, who I'm pretty bullish on. So like compared to those guys right there, like I just like drafting those players.
Yeah, I agree.
Who's more risky, Rice or Neighbors to you?
Neighbors, I would say. Just, I don't think people understand where the injury's at and the recovery and all that sort of stuff. So that's why I said I think his price is going to keep falling.
Okay. Next one is from Eric Cipolla, Panthers fan. What specific pieces of news will you be looking forward to as we get deeper into camps? For example, which ambiguous backfields are getting more clear? We do an entire episode, I know, later on in the summer where we sort through ambiguous backfields. We sort through ambiguous wide receiver situations. So this is kind of like a preview for us of just saying like, okay, what are the things that are on your radar? I will say that I have a list right now of every player who is, quote, running with the ones so far.
Do you have some fun names on there?
I'm just letting you know it's basically everybody and their mama.
Okay.
Because running with the ones just means that on this play or on this package or on this specific, thing they're trying to install, they are trying out this player. So I joked about Brashard Smith, the 7th round running back of the Chiefs last year, and he had some moments over the summer where he was, quote, running with the ones because they were trying him out as a 3rd down back, just seeing, giving him experience, all this stuff. It does not mean that this person is now a 1st-string player, but you would hope that every single player gets moments. It also, sometimes players are running with the ones because the one is out that day.
That's super important.
So like the Cowboys one is a situation that I don't know who the RB2 is. I think it'll be interesting between Malik Davis, Phil Maffa, who was a 7th round pick, and then Jaden Blue, who I read an article today that he's done a 180 with his maturity.
Grow up, man. It's time.
He did. But all of these guys have had moments so far as running with the ones because like Javonte was like out of a practice. And so like you could report that any of these guys, but that actually is a situation that I'm like, I hope we get clarity. I would love to draft the RB2 there late in best ball.
Yeah, for sure. I think running back 2s just in general are the news that we're looking for because right now it makes 0 RB teams really tough because we don't know who to draft when you get to like round 15 and beyond. Like you might like Kalen Black or whoever for the 49ers, but like it could be Jordan James, like I don't know. So trying to see if you can get that information as camp goes on. Those are the things that I'm looking for. I know you have on the list here Dolphins wide receivers. They could do like a full committee approach, and then who knows, man? Like Greg Dulcich is getting a ton of hype right now, which is fun. Love Greg D. But the wide receiver room could also look totally different in week 16 compared to week 1, right? So like these are situations that I'm definitely tracking, but you really want to be careful with, I think, taking small tidbits of information and applying them as if it's fact. Like you said, with the running with the ones concept, it's just, we only have a small glimpse into these practices. And when I say we, I mean like beat reporters. And it's so funny to me. And this is like kind of wild, but this is the way it is. They will tweet clips of practice. They will tweet, this is the guy lining up next to Jordan Love in the backfield or whoever. And like we as the fantasy community run with that. But like, what if on that day in practice, they were just trying out a different package? And then like next week when the media isn't there, they're not doing that same thing. You know what I mean? So I think you just want to follow like the consistency type stuff where it's like, he is always the next one up. He is always the guy in there when, Josh Jacobs leaves or whatever example you want to use. Just be careful you're not reacting to news that is like one snippet of a brief moment in early or late July or early August, because things change, of course.
I am also interested in how the Browns, like just the packages that they install, because Concepcion, someone we liked, I think we sneakily liked Denzel Boston too. like more than we thought we would in the evaluation process. So I feel like I want to keep going to town on Concepcion and my exposures, but I'm also interested in Boston because he's left for dead too.
Yeah, and I mean, it's minicamp and it's June, so everybody is in the best shape of their life and looks incredible, but there has been a little bit of a drumbeat on him so far in camp.
Yep. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back.
If you walk into a room and can't remember why, it could be nothing or something more. If you confuse a familiar recipe, it could be a slip-up. Or it could be associated with amyloid plaque buildup in the brain. Amyloid is a protein that your body produces naturally, but a buildup in the brain could lead to memory and thinking issues. To see what may be behind your memory and thinking issues, talk to your doctor about getting a full assessment. It's never too early to start the conversation. Visit amyloid.com to learn more.
Support for this podcast comes from Progressive, America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Did you know riders who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $200 per year? That's a whole new pair of riding gloves and more. Quote today, Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $197 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between October 2024 and September 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Next question is from the lineup on X. Ask a simple question. Build the perfect picnic sandwich. So give one meat, one cheese, a condiment, and then you get another little wild card that you're going to put on the sandwich. Now, obviously, if I'm building a sandwich, I would have maybe 2 or 3 others, but
2 or 3 sandwiches.
No. The other is like toppings, tomato. Like I like to have like 2 or 3 things on there.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you're gonna do it, like to me, just having like a normal like turkey and cheese. I mean, we gotta grow up, man. Like, if you're gonna do it, put everything on there. I want all the veggies. I want the extra toppings. Like, I want everything. So, I don't know if this is the right way to answer this question. I'm not a huge sandwich guy, but like a good cheeseburger with like a little extra, caramelized onions, just like a nice fancy sauce on it. That's not a picnic thing, but like that's what I thought of with this question. Because like when I order a burger, I want it like spilling out the side. Like I want it all in there. But I'm not a big sandwich guy.
See, I feel like this is one of my vices. I feel like this is one of the things that I need help. That I love sandwiches. A good toasted sandwich in the summer.
That's true.
On some sourdough.
Sitting poolside.
Oh man. So my wife really likes tomato sandwiches or like BLTs. And if you get the right sourdough and you get like really good tomatoes that you get like at a farmer's market, oh man. That makes my wife happy. I'll just say like cheese, I'm not like too like I have to like have this certain kind. Like I could do Munster. I'm fine with Munster on my sandwich. Totally fine.
Agreed.
Provolone, very happy with it. I definitely need some mayo, and I do like spicy brown mustard.
Oh, me too.
Okay. And then if I had to tomatoes, and then I like banana peppers.
Oh, I'm also in on those.
Yeah. If I'm getting like a sub sandwich, which shout out to not a sponsor, but Firehouse, that's what I would get on it.
Yeah. They do have good subs.
From Greg Black 0, he says, if you miss out on the elite running backs early in the draft, how have you been attacking the position in the mid and late rounds? You and I were talking right before about how the ADP landscape every single year is just basically copying and pasting what happened last year, and therefore running backs get pushed up the board, and zero RB feels like not in vogue right now. It used to be cool, but not as cool. But we know that things are cyclical, styles that way, fashion, and that's how it is in best ball too. So how have you been attacking? Like you just did a draft right before this. You were showing me, just sporting the lineup just to show me, just to show off. And you went zero RB. Did you feel okay about it?
I felt alive. Let me tell you what, brother. And the screenshot looked a lot better after 5 rounds than it did after 18 rounds. I was going to say,
you sent me a screenshot that was like, oh man, I love that stack. Man, look at your wide receivers.
So the interesting thing about this ADP landscape, like you said, is that what we do in basketball is like, okay, well, this worked the last couple of years. Let's just keep doing that. And that's why a few years ago, when zero RB crushed for like 2 years in a row, everybody started drafting zero RB teams, and you had to take like, your wide receiver 3 in the first 4 rounds, or you were just behind at wide receiver. And then people that were kind of zigging a little bit and were like, hey, what if we try something different and don't do that? That was a huge a piece of leverage on the field. And this year, I'm not saying all my teams will be zero RB, but I will probably draft a little more zero RB than maybe the field is doing, because not that many people are doing it. So just from a uniqueness standpoint in these tournaments, I think there's value. So the team you're talking about, I started Jamar Chase and Brock Bowers. That felt great. Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin, Jameson Williams, and Jaden Daniels.
Log out. That
great.
It's
Screenshot
a great start.
Is beautiful. But then when you get to round 18, then you have to screenshot the whole thing. My running backs I drafted 8 of them. It was a 2-8-6-2 team. Tony Pollard, J.K. Dobbins, Chris Rodriguez, Isaiah Pacheco, Tank Bigsby, Ray Davis, Braylon Allen. I'm going to say this name out loud, but I already took Jamar Chase, Kyle, so I'm betting on the Bengals.
Yeah, of course. That's why you take Jamar Chase, so you can take Samaje Perine.
I took Samaje Perine. And so, obviously, this team needs a lot to go right to be good. But if there are more injuries than we realize or whatever, I think this team is live, And it's like, it doesn't feel good, but we have to remember the NFL is chaos, and we haven't seen that much chaos at running back in a couple of years. That could change this year. So, in general, I agree that the landscape is pretty appropriate for where these running backs are priced, and I don't necessarily want to be fading elite running backs early, obviously. So I'm mixing and matching, and I'm taking a different type of team. Hero RB, robust RB, zero RB. Like, I'm kind of just letting the board give me what it does and adjusting from there. But if I do miss out on those elite running backs early, I do feel like this is one of those years where like you have to have quantity to try to just make up some sort of quality, because we used to get guys priced in this like round 10 to 12 range that you could like squint and see it and you could see the huge upside case. I remember a couple years ago, after the Damian Harris like huge touchdown season, this is where like Ramondre Stevenson would go in this kind of bucket. And it's like, now that profile goes in like round 7, like running backs are just pushed up so far. So I don't know that you have the same upside available to you that you used to have in rounds 10, 11, 12. And so that's why on this team in particular, with the way that it shook out, it's like, I need to just fire away volume here and hope for the best. So if you do miss out on elite running backs, I do think you have to get yourself plenty of options. And that's why on those teams, I'm taking 6+.
Yeah, I despise the range going from like RB 27 to 34. The Chuba, Ramondre, Jalen Warren, Tony Pollard, RJ Harvey, Rico Dowdle. Rico's fine. Kyle Monangai and Blake Corum. I just feel like they're overpriced from where we used to be able to take that. I think we brought that up early on when we were talking best ball right after the NFL draft. Like, man, we used to be able to take these RB2s in the spot. Now, there is a spot in your drafts if you go a little bit further past pick 100, and then you start going around pick 120. There's guys that show up that I think are interesting zero RB players. I brought up Isaiah Pacheco, I think, way too many times at this point, but him, Keaton Mitchell's interesting. Aaron Jones, I think, is great for zero RB builds. Rashad White, Jonathan Brooks, Kenneth Gainwell, all of those guys are going past pick 100. I like building out my rosters with those guys when it comes to quantity. So, I don't go into my draft saying like I am only taking from these buckets, but when I identify a couple different ones, like I don't really love that pick 70 to pick 100 range for running backs. Like, it's fine if you're building out quantity, but like I'm not looking for those guys to be the answers that used to be where you could get the answers for your guys, for your teams.
Yep, I agree.
All right, the real McSpanky asks, where do you draw the line at roster ship percents or exposure rates is a lot of what we call them. He asks, do you have different thresholds based on ADP, like players drafted in the top 3 rounds or guys drafted later? How do you do it? We have a general number that we give out, which is 20% plus is bullish. But I want to make sure that I give a caveat to that because it depends on how you play best ball. And if you take a portfolio approach and how many tournaments you play. Like if you're someone that just says, I love doing the sit and goes. I love hopping in a room with 12 people. Those are the 12 people. I'm not trying to, beat a million people out there in a tournament. Then it doesn't really bother me whatever your percentages are. I will say the early round picks, So I'll just say the first, I don't know, let's call it 5 rounds. 15 or 20 to 25%. If you're there, that means you're bullish. You're basically saying anything here or above, I am making a stand on this player. And this is where I have them. So for instance, last year, let's say you ended up with JSN in the 3rd round. You were like 30+%. Like you smashed, you crushed. But it really matters like what tournaments did you play in? Did you stack them with Darnold, which we talked about last year? Only 25% of Darnold teams were stacked with JSN. That really mattered for your roster construction. And then who are the other players that you were also bullish on? Were you bullish on Brian Thomas Jr. as well? Because like that would have canceled each other out. Were you bullish on JJ McCarthy or whoever? So it's not just a singular player like, oh, I have 40%, JSN. It's like, oh, well, you also had 35% Rashard Smith, or which doesn't cost you as much because he's a later round pick. So if you're a later round pick, 30% doesn't bother me. I remember a couple years ago, I ended up at 33% with Darnell Mooney, which looked really good at the time, but like that's bullish because he was going as like 140, 150.
And with that example, though, like you had a specific method of attack where you were like, he's going to run the routes. Like he is the wide receiver too. You don't know how good or efficient he'll be or how many touchdowns he'll catch, but like just he's going to be on the field enough and this price probably doesn't make sense. And so you had a theory or at least a reason to be overweight that player. I would advise people against in round 15 to 18 or 20 if you're on DraftKings, always taking the same player because they're at the top of the queue. Like if you want to take 30% of a guy or 25% of a guy and you have a reason to, do it. I'm not saying don't do it, but you want to make sure that when you get into the late rounds, you're not just like, okay, well in round 18, I always take this guy. And then round 19, I always take that guy. And all of a sudden you look up at the end of the year and where these guys don't project well, and you've got so much of a player that you're like, oh, I didn't even plan to do that. I went on auto draft and that's what I always do. And so I did it. So we've talked about this before. Check your exposures, like check in every 3 or 4 weeks if you're drafting a bunch or, once a month or whatever it is for you and just make sure you're drafting the way that you want to be drafting. So I would say that. The other thing is you mentioned like the Brian Thomas Jr. and JSN example of last year. If you want to be overweight a player in the early rounds, I think that's fine. I think some people like to do that. Some people like to be a little more conservative. It just comes down to your own risk tolerance. But if you're going to go overweight a certain player, you don't want all of those teams with that player to look the same, meaning player combinations. Like every time I take JSN, I'm taking Brian Thomas Jr., or I guess it would have been vice versa. You take Brian Thomas Jr., I'm taking JSN in round 3. Like you want to make sure that those teams look different if you're taking an overweight stance on JSN from last year's example. So if there's a guy that you loved in the 3rd or 4th round this year, don't always pair him with the same guy in rounds 4 and 6. Just make sure your teams are kind of more diversified. That way, like if you do hit a landmine, which, spoiler, there are landmines all over the draft board, you don't want your stance or your player takes, if they're correct, to be mitigated by the fact that your teams all look the same.
Yep. I think you can also set a rule for yourself where, at a certain point in the summer, I'm going to check in on my exposure rates and go, hey, man, I'm at 40% of so-and-so player. I just really think that they're a really good pick at their ADP and no one else understands, but I get it. You can then say, if I hit this threshold, I'm only going to draft this player if they're a value. Like just If you want to take a portfolio approach. And I think if you're playing in tournaments, like you're trying to find this combination, right? You're trying to find this winning combination against, all of these people at multiple stages. I think you just have to realize that everybody else is drafting too. They also have exposure to this player and they also have different combinations than you. So it's not just saying if I get 40% and I'm right on this 40% player, it's no, you can have JSN too in some of your lineups. I wouldn't say I was over the moon on JSN, but I had him. And so I could easily hit the combination just as much as anyone else.
For sure. The other thing about this too is best ball is so impossible to predict. It's even if you had 30 or 40% of a guy, if in your advanced teams that you get to the playoffs in week 15, that player just happens to have a down week and you had a lot of him, a lot of your teams are knocked out, right? So you could be right, but be wrong. You know what I mean? And that's the nature of best ball.
Samuel White, fellow Eagles fan, ask, in the top 120 picks, what are both of your favorite targets and fades, guys you want to take a stand on? I wrote down a couple of targets, and I was thinking about this more of us together. Like who are we together in on? Maybe we can give some caveats, but Saquon and Brock Bowers in the early rounds, I feel like are ending up as the guys that we both will have the most.
Can I give you a bold prediction?
Yes, now I'm ready for it.
Okay. I don't know how bold this is because he's already kind of trending there, but I think Saquon will close at the end of August, early September as a top 10 pick.
I mean,
Moving the lines.
been here all along, brother. Hopefully it's right. No, I think he's a great pick this year. I thought you were going to say about Brock Bowers because we were joking about it in the Footballers Slack channel. They're like, by the end of this year, Brock Bowers will be bald. Because he's already balding at 23.
I was going to say, I think he's already there, man.
We like Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle. I like them both. We love Washington stacks. I feel like we're going to be overweight on Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Chigakonkwo. Those are the boys.
Don't fail us now, David Blau.
I'm excited about David Blau. I'm going to be overweight the Browns wide receivers. I guess they're going a little bit later, but I think I'm going to keep hammering away those rookie wide receivers. Let's go to fades. You wrote JT and CMC, and my rankings show that too. I'm terrified, completely terrified, but also like I think it just makes sense based on what they did last year and people paying for last season.
That's right. Yeah, it's just underweight stance. Like I'm going to have maybe a little 4 to 6% just so I can sleep at night, just in case. But I'll be underweight those guys. Relative to the other elite quarterbacks, I put Josh Allen. It's just a market price thing. I think Josh Allen's amazing, but when you can get Jaden Daniels or Lamar or Jalen Hurts, whoever your other elite archetype is, Drake May, much later, I just prefer those 2v2s where you can get that wide receiver running back where Josh Allen goes compared to the other scenario. We mentioned the Ram stacks being a little bit underweight them. I'm going to wait on Alec Pierce, just hope to get the best price because of the injury fall. And we mentioned guys like Malik Neighbors as well with that scenario. You put Christian Watson.
Yeah.
I personally am in on Christian Watson. So this is one that we'll differentiate on. But we did have another question on Twitter from Sarge's Take. He just wants to know our thoughts on Matthew Golden. So I thought this Christian Watson, Matthew Golden spot could be a good place to talk about that.
I don't mind Matthew Golden. I'm not going to be bullish on Matthew Golden. We never have been. The weird part about Christian Watson is like, why would you want him when you can get like a cheaper version with actual NFL production and actually stays on the field in Quentin Johnston? Like that's the same archetype, and yet Quentin Johnston has been available. Isn't that really like the best type of, thing that you want? Availability.
That's what they say.
The best ability.
They say it's important, Kyle. I mean, that's a fair argument. They are the same archetype. But as far as Matthew Golden, I think he's a fairly priced pick. I'll probably be in line with market is how I'd put it.
He's going as wide receiver 49. It's like, it's really hard for us to pick apart players that are going past pick 100 and be like, that's a bad pick. It's like, well, Here's what you need to do to pay off at cost. I think I like him where he goes. So I'll say that. Last one from the IT Ninja. Simple question as we close out. How do I get how do I get my wife to let me spend more money on drafts? And I need you to change your verbiage here. All right. This isn't about spending, right, Betz? What does he need to understand? What is he doing?
Do you want me to give my answer to this question?
Yeah, sure.
You need to win, dude. Like straight up, you show her, this is how much I'm investing every year and this is how much I'm winning. I am profitable in doing this. And she'll say, okay, great, play more. But if you're like, I lost again. She doesn't care about your positive EV or your ADP values you got. She wants to know, did you win money or not? Black and white. Results over process for the beautiful women in our life. Straight up, that is the truth. So you need to win more.
She's a gold digger. She wants the money. She's married you for your money. It's very clear that she married you for your money. I would just change don't let her know that you're spending money on drafts. You're investing. You are just investing the family's funds. Bring up college funds. Betz always does. That works out really well with his wife. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I would also advise, Betz and I have done this for a long time, do not show your significant other screenshots of when you are up, like in DFS, at like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock.
Never, ever, until the final game is played and the final snap is made. No screenshots.
Yep. Don't say what coulda, shoulda. We're definitely like against that kind of talk. Like it's just.
But the other thing is, I've done this, and then like 30 minutes go by, right, and like a long touchdown to somebody you didn't have, and she's like, "Well, I thought we were winning 10,000. What happened to that?" Like, well, see, now we only made 200 because, well, I didn't have this player and he had a touchdown. No screenshots.
Yeah, don't. It'll go a lot better for you. Trust me. Like if you just, and then let me give you some really good marriage advice. Like nothing is better than if you don't talk about it. Okay, so like they don't care. My wife doesn't care. Football is like white noise, which is kind of nice in our relationship. Like football's whatever. But then when you get to surprise them and say, "Hey, I won this. Like, what really won this? Here's the actual money." That's a really good feeling. And so I've always told Betz this, and I've told my wife that if I ever do take down the Millie Maker, really big tournament like that, I will not tell a soul on the planet. I will not tell anyone. And I want my wife to just casually find out about it.
That would be so legendary. Just like the next morning at breakfast, you just like slide your phone across the table. God, what a power move.
Like I might just get the printed out check.
I challenge you. I mean, maybe you'll never win. I hope you do.
No, you're like, actually, you know what? I don't think you're ever going to win.
You're probably not going to win. But if you do, I don't think that you couldn't tell me. Like the night of, when games are finalized, like you would definitely tell me.
I feel like part of me, like I don't want you to find out from some random person that like tags me on Twitter and then you find out or something.
Yeah, I feel betrayed.
Yeah, no. Okay. So are we going to make a pact that I tell you before I tell my wife?
Yes.
Okay. We said it on a podcast, and therefore it has to happen. Betz, sign us off.
Yes, sir. Always fun answering the listener questions here. Good discussions today. Should be a good summer coming up with drafting, man. We got a lot of opportunity here to invest, right? We're not predicting. We're not doing any of those things. We're not betting. We're investing in these best ball teams, get some good teams, and win some money. We'll see you next week. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
My mom inspired me to dream big and work hard.
Tyler Adams!
What would you like the power to do?
Bank of America, proud to be the official bank of U.S. Soccer and FIFA World Cup 2026. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC.
Support for this podcast comes from Progressive, America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Did you know riders who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $200 per year? That's a whole new pair of riding gloves and more. Quote today, Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $197 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between October 2024 and September 2025. Potential savings will vary.